Hey there, sports fans. How are we doing? I'm good, thanks. Welcome to the 10 yards back review of round 23 of the Betfred Super League 2025. A bit later than usual this week. You've probably all forgotten about it, but as round 24 hots up just around the corner, I thought I'd remind you, give you my 2 cents on how I saw the previous round. Let's have a look at what the fixtures were. It was a nice round. You know, the opener, without giving too much away, was excellent. There were a couple of really good games there, a couple of influential games. Let's say, in the grand scheme of the season, in terms of accolades and points and things like that, it's a bit of a nothing, just right in the middle of the table, except for the first time ever this season, spoiler alert, we had 6 home wins. Every home team won, so you're probably looking there at the table to see who won. But let's just have a look right down the fixtures here. So it was Leeds versus Hull KR, Saints versus Hull, Leigh, Salford, Catalans, Castleford, Huddersfield, Warrington, and Wigan versus Wakefield. And if you picked up that, then good for you. Right, let's dive right in. Let's head over to my predictions. So I predicted. You can see them on the screen if you're just listening. I actually predicted Hull, the Robins, Saints, Leigh, Catalans, Warrington, and Wakefield to win. We'll see how my predictions went there. Let's dive in with Thursday night, baby. Thursday night was full of promise, wasn't it? I was excited for this one. It was one of them where, you're in work on Thursday and it feels like a Friday because it's such a good game of rugger on TV afterwards. Later on, me and my wife watched it. My wife really likes watching Saints, but isn't really so fussed about the rest of the league. So it's a bit tricky to put it on public time, really. So I had this at 18-24 to Hull KR. You can see what the score was there. It was 28-6. It was great to see. It was fascinating to see, actually, because we haven't seen this from Hull KR yet this season. They've lost, of course, but not as comprehensively as this. I mean, even when they lost to Wigan earlier in the season, I think they scored 10 points, so they even scored a few more there in that one. There's a few things happened here, right, to give Leeds this victory, or for Leeds to take this victory, rather. So, first off, Mikey Lewis had a bad night. And the banter coming out of that city at the minute is poor. I'll say that. It's a little bit too mean for my liking and not that funny either. So, the banter this week has been a bit weird, and you would think that Hull FC beat them because of that, banter there between the two teams. It's good to have that rivalry, though, hey? It's nice. So Lewis did have a night off. Now, the thing about when someone like Lewis, someone as influential as Lewis, has a night off, is you'd almost rather he wasn't on the field, because you never know whether it's a night off or whether it was just a bad couple of plays or whether he's going to come good. So, Tyrone May is on the field as well, I think. Tyrone May is very capable. He's pulled, when Lewis was injured earlier in the season, pulled off all those spectacular passes that he did and such. Jez Litton was also picking it up majorly, really, really driving this team forwards. But when you've got Lewis on the field and he's not really performing, it's difficult, because he's sort of taking opportunities away from those two who are having a good night. So you've sort of almost got like 60% of your strike than you would normally have, because it was just a night off. He's a great player, nothing personal to him. We all have them, right? We've all had nights off on the field, of course. What really happened, I think, And I don't know if this was intentional or not. I don't work for the Leeds Rhinos. I wasn't in the dressing rooms, but they completely eliminated the wing threat by putting on a couple of really, really nice, tight, cheeky intercepts in the first half. I think there were about 3 of them in the first half, which led to, in the second half, they were sort of like, right, we're not really going to do that anymore, okay? You know, Burgess, Davis, you're here for kicks only now, okay? Just we're not going to pass out to you because they just keep intercepting the ball. We just can't do it. So you've got 60% of your strike in your sort of backs, your half backs and your full back, and then you remove those massive point scorers, Burgess particularly and Davis. It's a recipe for disaster. Leeds generally just massively fronted up in defence. It was a really, really good defensive show. And I always think it's rare to see a team that's... You probably get one a season, don't you, who's really, really good in defence, but then can also just switch the attack on afterwards as well. Like, Saints never really pulled that off. Wigan were really good at that, probably in around 2023, you know, when Bevan French was sort of coming up. Jay Field was back from that massive injury he had. And that was you know, unplayable really at that point, wasn't it? Leeds had one of those nights. It'd be interesting to see if they can keep it going. I think there's a couple of really nice things happen for Leeds. Not that many nice things happen for Hull KR, so I'm probably not talking about them for the rest of the time. In terms of defence, there was just kind of symbolised or wrapped up, summarised. This effort was there was a 1-on-1 between Connor and Tanganoa right on the try line. Now, Connor's got no business making a 1-on-1 tackle on Tanganoa, especially not the way he did. It wasn't an ankle tap. He didn't go low. He didn't use centre of gravity. He just fucking bear hugged him and pulled him to the ground. And that was sort of what Leeds' night was shaping up like. You know, we're just going to do this. We're just going to grab him, put him on the floor and play the ball. And that was, you know, it really, really worked for him. Another thing, this Presley Cassell kid everyone's talking about, and I've not talked about him because, you know, he's getting a bit too much credit for my liking, this old Cassell. He scored a try, and it was perfect. You know, bear in mind he's a prop. He's a young lad. He's 18. He's a prop. It was 23 minutes. Probably, I can't exactly remember who kicked the ball through, but Connor basically, or whoever kicked the ball for themselves. But it hit the posts. And it didn't just hit the posts and bounce back, it hit the posts and sort of like spun into the air somehow. Presley Cassell followed the kick for a start, which he didn't really need to do, it's not really his job. Plucked it out of the air, but then had the foresight to dive on the ground with it. He didn't place it down like I would have done back in the day. If I had caught a ball behind the try line, I'd have just placed it down, trusted that no one was going to get under it, hold it up, steal it from me. He knew he was out of his position, really. Picked up the ball. Normally, if he's facing tackles, he's facing them head on. Picked the ball up, dove on the ground. Excellent work from that young man. Very cool-headed, very calm, collected. Put it on the ground. He's going to be a good one. Just before half-time, Kyle Amor on the commentary said, you know, in the way he does, is this Hull KR at their worst, or is it Leeds at their best? I think it was both. You know, I mean, Leeds at their best for sure. I think Leeds have had a couple of real nice victories this year. This, for them, I think, is the pinnacle right now. All right, a little sip of Joe there. Before I move on to Friday Night Lights at the Totally Wicked Stadium. St Helens, the Saints versus Hull FC, the rugby team. I had this at 20 points to 16, so there or thereabouts. The winners, my victors won. I liked this game. It was the first game in a while that Saints have had to tough it out. They didn't walk all over them, although people sort of thought they were going to. It was 8-0 for about half an hour, I think. And the everyone, the commentators, the crowd, the players seem to think, well, that's it, we've won 8-0. Fine, yeah, great. We'll win this one. Not so. St Helens. Hull came back quite well. This game was nice on a few things. There was some real good defensive work on show by all involved, but it was the battle of the youngsters. And I heard what's his name, not Derek Beaumont. Ooh, the Saints head of recruitment. His name escapes me now. Say when Robertson was injured, St Helens can't be a team who are missing Robertson yet, because he's a young man. He's learning his craft. He's 19. He's had one half season before. They can't be a team that's missing him. I think he's missable now. Like, really, just some really, really good work on show from him every week. And personally, I think he's unlucky he's unlucky to exist at the same team at the same time as Jack Wellesby, because he's a really good fullback, and you can see why he's such a good centre, because he's such a good fullback. I mean, he went to wing at the end of this game for a little bit, and it wasn't quite working for him, because when you're on the wing, the skill of a winger, in my opinion, is to have, yes, you got to have decent hands, but it's really about line selection. Which direction do I run in? Do I run inside or outside? My opponent, if I'm a winger, is the touch line and the defenders. If you're a centre, there's a lot more defensive threat. You have to know how to evade tackles a lot more, but you also need the hands. You've got two directions you can go in with the ball, really, if you're a centre and a fullback or whatever. And I think that's why he sort of struggled a little bit. And he didn't struggle, but he didn't excel on the wing, I don't think, at the end. Couple of notable points there in the Battle of the Youngsters, then I'll move on, is 29 minutes, Barron, Harvey Barron, very dangerous player on the wing for Hull FC, youngster, makes a clean break. He just breaks through the line. Dagnall and Robertson just fucking meet him both at the same time. They both come from opposite sides of the pitch to just smash him in the middle. Great. 54 minutes, again, Robertson, my boyfriend, the try-scoring expert, Lewis Martin, makes a break that no man can really stop. But Robertson just fucking gets down there, follows him, and he pulls off just the perfectly weighted ankle tackle. It wasn't an ankle tap. He secured the feet, but I don't think anybody else even attempts that tackle. It's if you miss, it's going to be so painful to just fucking face plant on the floor like you would have done with your arms up and your ribs just exposed. He did it. He got there. He saved the try for sure. Now, this game, I think, was won on territory, and you can see the meters there. I'm not sure how accurate those Hull FC meters are, but the key is Saints made many more meters than Hull FC. So if you watch this game zoomed in on both teams and just saw the lines going at each other, you could be confused to think that they're both doing as well as each other, because they were matching set for set, tackle for tackle. But if you look at the full length of the field, I don't know how it was happening, but Saints were just making more meters than Hull every set. So even though Hull were doing their best in defence and really, really doing a good job in defence, they just found themselves on their own try line time after time after time, just defending it. And that is, I think, what the tipping point was. There was a point there where there was a couple of kickoffs. There was a bit of biff at the end a couple of times, and there was one in particular. Morgan Knowles and Herman Essa, they were having a bit of a pop each other the whole game, and the commentators love that, don't they, when you've got a bit of a rivalry that might explode. And Liam Moore stopped the game and went to the VR for something about this. Like, none of the players wanted it, but it took like a couple of minutes to just sort this issue out as to what happened, and it turned out nothing. It was just a bit of biff. And Aidan Caesar goes over and goes, well, why stop the game then? And Liam Moore goes, I'm glad you agree, let's restart it. That's the gangster life thing on Thug Life on Liam Moore. God, how old am I? On Liam Moore. Yeah, so a good game, a good performance all around. Hull FC came off a little bit worse. I am really sorry because it's Hull FC or Wakefield, isn't it, in the six, unless Leigh really crap out. I wish we had a playoff for the playoffs, Hull FC versus Wakefield. I think that would be really good, and it's what they each deserve as well. I think they've each done such a good job this season. I'd like to see that. It's not going to happen. All right, I'm going on a little bit here. So the Leigh Salford game, I watched. I wasn't really planning on watching this, if I'm honest. But luckily for me, my daughter had a terrible night's sleeping all weekend, and I was up at 3 a.m. every day. So got a chance to catch up on some good old rugby league action there from the Leigh Sports Village. Similar story. Some of the players met for the first time on the bus this morning. The commentators keep making a big deal out of this, and I don't think they should, because whilst that is quite the achievement for the team and for Paul Rowley, it just looked bad. It's terrible. You can't have people just walking into a professional sports club and expect it to perform. I think there's a few things that happened really well. So this game was a really good advert for Rowan Mills of Castleford, and I'm sorry I don't know his first name, but Chimambe from Wakefield on the wing. Those two were really good, and that was what really kept Salford in this game for an hour. They were well in this game for an hour. I think it was 12-6 maybe at the 60-minute mark. Those two players really added a couple of quid to their next salary negotiation during this game. I think Leigh, for some reason, just kept kicking it to Chimambe. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Sorry, buddy, if I'm not. On the kickoff, on the dropouts, on the just the territorial kicks, and he was just taking it every time. And the commentators were like, "Yeah, he's cool as a cucumber, that kid, isn't he?" Like, yeah, he is. I don't know why you keep going there. And the couple of times that they didn't go there resulted in points. Last thing I'll say on this is when they did when they fell behind on 60 minutes and Leigh started racking the points up, some of those tries that Leigh were getting were like good tries, if that makes sense. Like, you were like, oh yeah, good. And I think that is a testament to how well Salford were still doing at the end of that game, because Leigh they didn't scrape by because they got 38 points. They weren't going to lose, but they scraped that margin for sure. So good on you, Salford. And that's all I'll say about that. So moving on to the Catalans Dragons versus Castleford. Again, this was one I didn't watch it live. I was just doing something else. I didn't watch it live. I was never going to watch it live. I think I did watch it back again. Thank you, Lucy. I had this at 30 points to 12. Obviously, that didn't happen. And again, I don't want to harp on the point, but Castleford are the real team we need to be looking at. Who's ruining the league at this point? Because what's their excuse? You sacked your coach, and you did nothing about it, and you've just gone shit since. You're not getting relegated because Salford are gonna, or you got more teams coming up. You're safe. You've really thrown this away, and it's not doing very good. However, I'm going to make an argument for this game. I'm going to actually say something that you probably don't expect me to say. This game would have been a good game to just have on in the background of a casual bar, trying to get people into the sport, to just have on in a bar, because it had an international component. You got France versus UK. It's rugby. It's a pretty simple game. It was quite competitive up to half time, and I'll show you some stats in a minute. And then you had the bowl over, and the bowl over was due to technique, and there were a few different rules that could have been explained here. 40-20. I think there was a ball dropped after the tackle was complete, so it was a scrum, not whatever. This would have been a good game to introduce someone to rugby league in a very casual way. However, one thing I've never noticed about the Stade Gilbert Brutus is it's looking a bit tatty into it at the minute. The pitch looked a bit shit. The stands, I like I like the ground. I've got good memories there. But the stands kind of look pieced together nowadays. And then whenever it would show you a view behind the try line where the away supporters are, it was like there was a shed with the post protectors in it, all like old post protectors that are all like faded and worn with the sun. And they were just like stacked up in a shed behind the try line. I was like, guys, this is on TV. This is going out to people. People are going to watch this in a bar, getting into the sport. You need to do something about this. Not going to say too much about Castleford because there's not too much to say about it. On the Catalans front, I'm glad to see that Theophage is enjoying his Super League swan song, because I love him. He's a great player. He was great for Saints, great at Salford when he played there, and great in his first run at Catalans as well. There was a point in this game where Farge kind of smelled blood in the water a little bit with this guy. I think his name was Wallace, playing wing, and he just kept going to him. 40-20 attempt. Every kick that got chased went to him. It was really, really just punishing this kid, but he was just doing what he needed to do. I'm glad he's. I think that him and Kiri are probably the best pairing in the halves that Catalans have had. Even though people seem pretty down on Kiri at the minute, even the commentators seem kind of down on him. To be honest, he fumbled the ball at one point, and the commentator going, "Oh my God, Kiri's fumbled the ball. The NRL superstar Luke Keary has fumbled the ball," because it was a short try. It would have put them miles in advance. What I was saying about the halfway thing, it's crazy to think that, these are the half-time stats. I don't often do this. They're a bit different to what I've been displaying before. Very, very even. Catalans, in fact, with a 90% completion rate at 61% possession. Amazing. They're definitely going to win this game. And then to look at what actually happened, where you basically flip that possession and the meters, Catalans went on to make a further 800 meters, whereas Castleford made a further 400 meters, coming in below 1,000 meters in that second half. It's just, it's just not good enough, And plus as well, you got possession and completion, which means you got loads of chances. In the first half, you're just not doing anything with it. I'll say it because I'm belabouring the point. Okay, Huddersfield versus Warrington. Now, I'm going to be honest. I only watched the first half of this one, then caught the highlights. I think this sums up my argument for more teams, I think, because this was a good competitive game at the low end of this table. If either of these teams had played Wigan or Saints or Hull or any of the top six on Saturday, they'd have been battered. It wouldn't have been the same. Now, it also kind of ruins my argument for a Williams-only Warrington that I've been making all season, because I think the difference between the two teams in this game is George Flanagan just mopped up everything that Williams had to offer, basically, in terms of a kick threat. So you had to go to Sneed for the longies. The difference really here was George Flanagan, I think. Great fullback, attacking and defensively. He linked up with Jacob Gagai perfectly. Really, really stood up to Toby King in the first half. He's a great player. I think. Well, what I think Huddersfield have done here is said, right, listen, we got a couple of games left to sort of save our face, really. Let's just put everything through George. Everything goes through George. George decides what we do, and just listen to him. And we might not score as many points as we would do otherwise, but at least we'll score something. So Huddersfield, the victors, 23-10. I thought Warrington were going to walk away with this, but like I said, I think Flanagan just mopped it all up. It seemed like Warrington had more territory gain, more territory than Huddersfield in general, but what Huddersfield were putting together and the way they were acting as a team was just far superior to what Warrington had to offer. So that was how they won that game. Finally, here, Wakefield versus Wigan. Again, so I caught this up on Monday morning, early doors, and I was excited. I was so excited. I avoided the score, stayed away from everyone, didn't talk to anyone all Sunday evening because I knew that it was going to get ruined for me. I knew this game was going to get ruined, and I knew that it was going to be so good. I knew it was going to be a perfect game. And it just wasn't, was it? I had this at 24-20 to Wakefield to win, just snatch it there from the jaws of Wigan, and it was 44-2. No tries scored for Wakefield. The only points coming from a Max Jowett penalty. And on Max Jowett, was he injured? Was he tired? I don't know. He didn't. He certainly wasn't himself. Now, he's not a guy... You look at Max Jowett, and he doesn't scream enthusiasm to me. You know, very, very even-keeled. Face is basically always has the same expression on it. But he does his bloody job, doesn't he? He's great. He's top of the point-scoring charts for a reason, because he's so good. He's a try threat and he's a kick threat. He just didn't really do much on Sunday, if anything, really. I mean... There was a couple of points where he sort of walked the ball back in after a 20-meter restart, and you just kind of walk it back to the line instead of running it back enthusiastically. And I think that was kind of catching to the whole team, to be honest. I think at 29 minutes there was a shot. I think it was a try saved, just put into touch. Wigan put into touch on the corner, and you just saw the body language of a few of the Wakefield guys. There's one thing I was always taught as a kid playing was, don't let your opponents see that you're tired. Do not have tired body language. You know, none of hands on hips, hands on knees, bending over, stand up straight. At least make them think that you're not tired, even if you're knackered. And Wakefield on Sunday screamed tired. You could just point them out and say, "Oh, you are fatigued right now. You know, I'm going to run at you because blah blah blah." There's a lot you can say about this. I think one of the things that Wigan did spectacularly, a similar tactic to what Leeds did with Hull KR, cutting off the wings. And Wigan used to do this more, and so did Warrington, is they cut off the wings, but in the most brutal way, because Wakefield knew that if the ball even went near the wing, it didn't even need... If the ball could see the wing, you were going to get bowled into touch by 8 players that came from nowhere. And probably a bit symbolic of the rugby league intelligence showed by Wakefield on Sunday was at one point when Jowett was heading for touch with, again, like 8 defenders on him, and he keeps the ball in. There's a penalty for some reason. I can't remember exactly what happened. Maybe it was an offside thing, but he manages to keep the ball in. They get the penalty. Leigh kicks it about 3 yards downfield. Kind of a wasted opportunity. And then I think it's Walmsley gets the ball and just does exactly the same thing and actually gets put into touch. It's just like, God, man, didn't you just see what happened? Why didn't you run in field? Why didn't you pass it the other direction? Why did you do that? But... You know, it is what it is. Wakefield lost. They're going through a bit of a dip, aren't they? But I think they'll be back this week. They got Huddersfield this week. I think they'll be back. Now, something I just wanted to show here with the halftime stats, like I did with the Catalans just earlier. So, all right, the score, the possession is whatever. Completion rate 60%, pretty terrible. Already got half the meters that Wigan have. The the key one there is the bottom one. Play the balls in the opponent's 20 metres. They had one attempt in a whole 40 minutes of rugby. They got down there once, which is pretty bad. You can't win games like that, can you? As much of a sort of midfield threat that Wakefield are, you need a bit more territory than that, lads. This was the Wakefield's worst performance in terms of metres gained by about 100 metres. And then second place there is about 200 metres lower than the average anyway. So this was a particularly poor performance from Wakefield. Everybody knows it. Everybody said it. I'm not going to belabor it. We can take the W and we march on to the end, don't we? All right, they're the scores. No need to belabor them. All home victories for Leeds, Saints, Leigh, Catalans, Huddersfield and Wigan. Which has put Huddersfield out of the firing line. They're in 10th now. They're climbing the table thanks to the disappointing Tigers there at the bottom of the table. Have a quick look at the top point scorers. Max Jarrett's still up there. I think probably benefited here that, Jarrett and Morg didn't really score many points at this week, did they? Because weren't really opportunities. Carl Felt, George Flanagan, of course, mid-table. It's a good thing. The try-scoring expert, Lewis Martin, there at the bottom. Is he the only one? Yeah, he's now the only one in there that is not a kicker, which is fantastic. Good on you, you young lad. And there he is again, try-scoring expert at the top. I think he's actually on 22 tries now. Like I said, don't take my numbers for gospel. It's just it is what it is. It's roughly there. But Jowett and Burgess still hanging in there despite their poor performances of their teams this week. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening, watching, feeling what we were doing here today. I'll be back very soon with my predictions for round 24 of the Betfred Super League 2025. Thanks.